Humans got a lot of identifiable primal urges that you could name on the top of your head. Eating, sleeping with someone, violence, parental instincts. It's a lot of things programmed into that lizard brain. But as for the first software they dropped for the human brain, I think that putting things in a ranked list gotta be slotted right around wherever they put language. If you're confused at all about what I just said, go into google.com or youtube.com and look up literally any topic and then put tier list at the end, press search, and look at it. From basketball debates to Shonen Jump Pro Tag lists, fighting game characters to fast food items, dog breeds to actor attractiveness, I bet if you typed in any of these right now in either of those search engines, you'd be able to find at least 100 people putting each one of these categories into a tier maker. You gotta admit, there's something in your brain that clicks with you when you see things you know about ordered into a list. But for a lot of people, the lists go far deeper than satisfying some recurring format made up around 20,000 years ago. And it's all in good fun. Except it's not, and real-life people that you could encounter walking down the street in your neighborhood are willing to die behind their made-up lists that impact no one. In fact, if you go far enough into these lists, you can find some people that just shouldn't occur in nature. Don't know what I mean? Well, let me give you a little tutorial to help you understand. So I want you to go outside, go in your neighborhood, wherever you live. I want you to go find and drag out your local political radical list. Not the representative, or a protester or anything, a guy who feels strongly about it. No, I mean a guy who's in the basement plotting to use a mortar launcher to drop an explosive right onto the head of their head of state. Then, after you secure the services of Mr. Malcontent, leave them there while you go down to a sports bar and take the guy that makes rankings about old basketball players at your local old guy bar, bring him back to your house. Now, put these two in the same room, but not before you tell one that the other guy believes in the government wholeheartedly, and the other guy that the one guy thinks LeBron James is better than Michael Jordan, and lock those two in a room until one of the two gives ground to the other. And I guarantee you, 10 out of 10 times that the 52-year-old balding divorcee will not only outlast whatever pathetic little revolutionary who was unlucky enough to be in the same room as him, but also that, unless you've completely vacated the room of any non-padded objects that weigh more than 5 pounds, that poor little Ted K disciple will not be dead on the ground, and you will be wanted for accessory to murder for conducting this experiment. But ignoring the gross mistreatment of human life you just committed, I hope it's clear to you now that not only are these people willing to die behind their rankings, they are more than willing to kill behind these rankings. But after looking at this for a while, you start to wonder, how exactly does someone get to this level? After all, it takes a lot of time to get someone to this level of anger and righteousness for anything, let alone a silly little made-up list. Except, it's not just a list, not anymore. That's your baby. You've been nurturing and caring for that baby for years of your life, constantly feeding it whatever bullshit gets propped to you. And now, the rest of the world gotta deal with that. So no matter what, if these lists are about anything where there is any enjoyment to be had at all, whether you can measure it objectively or not, the first thing is the first thing you interact with. More often than not, the first thing you interact with dictates whether you'll actually get into that category of things, so you'll rate that thing higher than anything else. But if thing is too abstract for you, let me give you an illustration. Go up, ask someone their favorite Pokemon game. Then, ask them when they were around the age of 8 to 12 years old. Now, look up the Pokemon game that came up around that time frame, and chances are, you found a date that lines up with what they just gave you. Your first time is always magical, so of course, the experience has to be higher, simply because these ones contain the pure memories of you having fun before you turned to the dark side and started arguing on Rate Your Music like, there's absolutely no way Answer Up There is top 90 all time. It's top 150 at best. Do you understand how fucking insane you sound? No, you were never looking for reasons why what you were doing sucked all the way back then, and you'll most likely never get that experience back. So instead, you just pretend that whole time was actually just way better, because you don't want to finally break that illusion that these things were that good when you were a kid, or that might finally push you over the edge. We get a nice little 4-letter word that I'm not gonna say because it's overused, but you can read the screen. Of course, almost everyone has these biases, even slightly. You probably didn't need me to tell you about them. What I do need to tell you about is the more heinous evolution of this trend. you might not even register this, but if I give you an example, I guarantee that you can tell me you've seen this before. Imagine somebody, really quick, with an inner monologue that sounds kind of like this. Not only are my goats at 8 years old still the greatest of all time, now that I'm 30 years old, but every single thing coming out now needs to be just like those 22-year-old masterpieces all over again. But also, it's never gonna be as good as back then. So the best I can do is 8 out of 10 for anything I can consume now. Because it's never, ever gonna be as good as the good old days. That's why they call it the good old days, and not the good new days. And if that intercom sounded familiar at all, you can take a step back and look at what they specifically rank. All of their rankings aren't really even measuring anything anymore besides what is most similar to that shit I did in the past when I was a kid. Fortunately though, not everyone is chained and shackled by their past. Instead, some people are chained and shackled to the present. They've now fell in love with whatever just came out and preach the word of last Friday as if it was the Lord's gospel. But also, they have the memories of goldfish. So when something new comes out, they'll probably trash it like they thought it was garbage the whole time, or even worse, they'll just forget about it. Because whatever is new exists in the hardest era ever to be good, so it's just better, and therefore makes everything new objectively better than what was before. Those fucking relics wouldn't last a second in the present day, and literally everybody would pass them if it wasn't for old people constantly hyping it up like it meant something. No matter how good this classic is, somehow, somewhere, something new that is universally agreed upon to be kinda mid at best would blow it out the water if we ever put these two in the ring and made them compete right now. The new gen is just better and way more iconic and influential than whatever old farts people talk about to pretend they're smart connoisseurs. Of course, you never actually go back and ever experience these old things for yourself because other people saying that the new gen is worse than the old gen that you didn't see live, or worse, that this old gen bullshit influence whatever I'm into just feels blasphemous. They're hating because they can't let go of the old shit. Can't just accept that this random seasonal is just way better than Goku and his caveman fans from the 80s. In fact, it's enough to ruin your entire perception of everything old. So when you do eventually get around to it, all you ever do is look around for the most egregious failures and base your whole experience around that. Well, that's even if you had the patience to stomach going through this undoubtedly horrible, awful experience of an older version of something you like. This is actually how new age versions of the first guy come to be, and is part of the old head cycle once that new thing gets filtered out for another new thing. However, on the flip side, you might also just have the memory of a goldfish, in which case your tier list will look more like your watch history. No matter what time period you're stuck in though, you always had to be on the lookout for mind control. And I'm being dead serious. And actually, before I go on, I want to at least say that I have a lot more respect for the previous two archetypes. For as bad and biased they are, they exist because of their own experiences and opinions. So at the very least, they deserve human understanding for the condition they find themselves in. On the other hand, the third set of guys gets on my nerves like they trained their whole lives specifically to be as publicly annoying to me as humanly possible. What I'm talking about now occurs mostly when someone really doesn't have a strong opinion on something, but everyone they see does have a strong opinion on something. So, not wanting to be left out, they go opinion hunting. Just find the first figure with at least a moderate level of popularity and agreeability, and latch on to whatever they say, remixing it a little if you feel brave. This is especially prevalent when you want to be accepted into an in-group that prides itself on objective rankings, getting every single statistic to the minute detail as to why Atlanta is actually better than The Boys by approximately 0.3 out of 10 points. So instead of having to create your own tastes, you can actually just use a cheat sheet made personally for you by someone else so you don't get mercilessly laughed at by people you likely don't even know. So now you're officially correct. 0 notes. A+. Congratulations. But after a bit of time has passed, you start doing some growing up, ponder a little bit, you start to think, why the hell does any of this even matter? And not in that nihilistic, oh bro, literally nothing matters anyway, or we're gonna die, because I'd be more than happy to show you the perfect counter argument to that whole ideology. I mean, why does this matter in terms of how these ranks matter at all? Like, yeah, sure, this is all for entertainment and fun, except as we've established previously, no they are not. And sure, sometimes a list could be cool for like figuring out which fast food you want to eat at today, but even then, I'm 90% sure if I showed someone 5 randomly selected fast food tier lists, they would vehemently disagree. So they're not really that useful because you're gonna disagree with a lot of them, in which case, just do it yourself. Put your big boy pants on and order something from P.F. Chang's or something. Even then, with no tangible benefit to anyone around us, we still all will make these lists. It's in the blood. The more well-adjusted of the population likely keeps these lists locked up inside the brain, used only for reference. But the worst of us will incessantly post this and all the other lists in their brain on some social media platform and somehow get at least, at the very minimum, 30 other people flinging shit at each other because they agree or disagree with the list. It doesn't matter what the list represents, who or what it's ranking, why any of it is even in a ranked list, or even if any of this is significant and genuine in any way. Lists will come out and there will be discussion had over them. Like, I have zero clue what the difference between hyperversal or outerversal is, but Lord help you if you ever say Alien X is outerversal, not hyperversal, because I could have sworn I never saw religious wars quite as hateful as people getting into it over this power scaling shit. But really, I dare you to find one time where all-time rankings or media thread rankings have decided to lend you a hand when you were at your lowest. Many of those things out there, I'm convinced, detract from society like a blood-sucking parasite that doesn't put the milk back after eating cereal. Like, while I was standing outside a restaurant, minding my own business watching a random baseball game, some guy walks up to me with a sheet of paper, hands it to me, and asks me, "Hey, which pitcher is better, pitcher A or pitcher B?" And as I seriously thought about this random question posed to me by this random man fresh out of an Applebee's, I noticed that the years on these stats were literally from the 80s and that there was a guy with a camera next to me with a notebook in the other hand to jot down responses. God damn it, I thought. I've been used for a content farm. Now, did literally any of this happen to me? No. But imagine it happens to you. Does that question change anything for you? Does that assertion change anything for you? Does that sentence even mean anything to you at all? Now, before you answer that question, I know it doesn't. But the reason why I just use this hypothetical argument between what could be a 60-something running away from his wife at the bar and a 20-something who reads spreadsheets for fun and accidentally had a non-alcoholic beer while watching a Blue Jays game is because in real life, if you were to encounter this situation, you would compartmentalize that conversation where it's supposed to be. Out of your brain, in the garbage. But if we make this situation about something you care about more, or if you have an agenda against a baseball Hall of Fame, then it might get some gears turning in your head. I mean, even with that, you probably still won't speak up in the middle of that argument, but now, instead of completely ignoring it, you might get a little more nosy, judge them behind your closed mouth. Silently take sides in an argument that means jack shit between two people that have not affected your life beforehand and will not affect your life after you encounter them. What I'm trying to illustrate here is that even if you think you're above any of this behavior, there's always going to be something that sets you off, even passively. I don't care how nonchalant you are, what kind of patience you might have, any prayers you might say to any of your gods. None of us are immune to reducing our entire thought process to arbitrary rankings because they wrote this shit in your brain the second humans could choose between rabbit meat and mammoth meat. Although now, just like an appendix, the ranking part of your brain does nothing but cause problems and meaningless discourse. But unlike an appendix, you're stuck with this part of your brain for the rest of your life.